In Sweden, there is a recurring misunderstanding about what minority journalism is supposed to do. When an indigenous newsroom reports from its own community, it is often treated as suspicious, like it must prove it deserves to speak. SVT Sápmi does not exist to satisfy the majority society's demand for neutrality as defined by Swedish mainstream norms. Its task is to speak to and for the Sami population, on Sami terms, in Sami languages, guided by Sami priorities, and grounded in Sami context. That is not a deviation from journalism. It is a form of journalism from a minority perspective. And it is also an expression of an indigenous people's right to self-representation, supported by international commitments and by Swedish minority rights frameworks. Sweden recognizes Sami as both an indigenous people and a national minority, and it treats Sami languages as national minority languages. That matters, because language media is not a decorative extra. It is infrastructure for cultural survival, public debate, and democratic participation. A minority newsroom is not an imitation of national political reporting. It is not there to reproduce the assumptions of the majority. It is there to make sure a community that has long been spoken about can also speak in its own voice, with its own editorial horizon. So when a mainstream columnist accuses SVT Sápmi of serving an identity political purpose, the accusation collapses under its own logic. The claim is basically, if you report from who you are biased. But mainstream media reports from who it is every day, and calls that normal. Public service in Sweden is not only about reaching everyone in the abstract. It also includes concrete expectations that minority languages and minority audiences are served, not as charity, but as a democratic obligation. Recent public service requirements explicitly treat the national minority languages, including Sami, as a core part of the mission. Here is where the debate becomes hypocritical. While SVT Sápmi is pressured to perform a clinically sterile version of impartiality, major editorial pages repeatedly publish sharply angled attacks that portray Sami rights and Sami institutions as dubious or self-serving. When that happens again and again, the demand that Sami media must add more critical voices starts to sound less like a concern for balance and more like a strategy to weaken legitimacy. This is the deeper pattern. The standard of impartiality is applied more harshly when the speaker belongs to a minority. A Sami journalist reporting on Sami affairs is assumed to be partial. A Swedish journalist reporting on Sami affairs is assumed to be neutral. As if Sami identity automatically colors reporting, while Swedish norm dissolves into invisibility. That is an old colonial reflex in modern clothing. The expectation that indigenous people should be quiet, compliant, and grateful. And if they insist on being heard, it gets labeled activism. But the Sami community is not a special interest lobby. It is an indigenous people in a state that is still working through its own colonial history. Yes, SVT Sápmi, like every newsroom, must take conflict of interest questions seriously. Integrity matters, but insinuation is not evidence. If the claim is that reporting is unsound, then show where it fails. Which facts are wrong, which voices were excluded without reason, which standards were broken. Otherwise, the argument becomes something else. Don't judge what they say, judge who they are. Indigenous journalism is not activism simply because it centers indigenous realities. It is responsibility. It is the work of informing a people, strengthening a language, and widening democracy. If anyone deserves tougher scrutiny in this debate, it is not the small editorial desk speaking from Sápmi. It is the broader media ecosystem that still struggles to listen, while speaking with confidence about what others should be allowed to be.